In this lesson, we're going to look at what social inclusion policies are, also known as affirmative policies or actions. Let's look at some initiatives that can motivate businesses and the third sector to develop these actions, which can also work towards protecting social equality.
It's important for us to talk a bit about this topic to build the idea we have of the social system. Currently part of understanding that things happen for a reason, and often that reason doesn't benefit individuals in the society we're talking about at the moment. In our case, here in Brazil. So, affirmative action policies are measures that have as their principal, objective, and foundation equality, which is essential for structuring democracy. Because when we talk about democracy, we're talking about equality, about equal rights, about equal access. So affirmative measures come in to reaffirm and make sure that this actually happens. The term refers to a set of measures that allocate resources or benefits for the protection of people who are part of a vulnerable group. So, those who have been discriminated against and victimized by social exclusion in the past or present. Affirmative actions aim to make this socio-historical recovery. We can take the ethnic racial issue as an example, which brings up the historical aspect of its oppression, as it was, a group that was enslaved for over 400 years. And this historical oppression still reflects in the lives of these individuals today. So here we have listed some groups for which affirmative action is necessary. They would be women, the LGBT group, race and ethnicity, which was the ethnic racial issue. I mentioned earlier, the elderly and people with disabilities. So here are some of the actions that could influence the development of this group. The issue of housing, urban planning, economic development. Here we've listed several other examples, because affirmative actions aim to break through that invisible barrier, right? And eliminate inequalities that we can't see. Because many times prejudice is hidden. So when prejudice is hidden, call it invisible prejudice. We can't see it, it's not tangible. Because it's there, people don't talk about it. But it exists. And with it existing, it's blocking the development of someone. So, affirmative action, besides the goal of equality, aims to break these barriers. Here we also included what could motivate some sectors to develop certain actions. We separated it into the first, second, and third sectors, remembering that the first is always the public power, the second is the business sector, and the third sector is organized civil society, the social organizations. So, what would motivate companies to develop affirmative actions? The issue of social marketing, which is very important for a company today, is that its appearance, its image, is positive in society. The issue of fiscal responsibility, the tax issue, is also important for companies, and the enhancement of resources, because companies have resources for the social area. They need to enhance this resource. So what is needed to enhance this resource? Good projects, good initiatives, as well as the development of the territory they are part of. So, when a company is situated in a territory, it also seeks to develop its surroundings, because if its surroundings grow, it will automatically grow as well. Here we talk about what could motivate the third sector to also develop affirmative actions. So, the contribution to reducing social problems, which is linked to the development of the territory, also aims to increase and achieve sustainability for their projects, because organizations today can't promote or sustain themselves if they don't have an agreement with the public power or a partnership with the private sector. So, they're looking for this issue of self-sustainability, and also exert some influence on the creation of public policy, because public policy happens due to some pressure from affirmative action as well. So it's important for organizations to have this kind of influence. Here we mentioned that besides combating social inequalities, the absences also work in prevention. Because when you only talk about combating inequalities, you're just talking about criminalizing those who are infringing on someone else's rights. So the one who is racist, the one who is prejudiced, ends up forgetting about the central individual. who is the one suffering from prejudice. So it works on the prevention of these groups that are exclusively discriminated against. So the groups that have a history of oppression and that we know will end up being part of a minority. So prevention serves this purpose, to ensure that in the end, during your development, you're not placed in a discriminated, inferior, or minority context. Here we included some examples of affirmative policies in Brazil. It would be a racial quota system for people with disabilities. In some cases, we also have quotas for women. I think that in politics today, clearest example is the quotas for women. We also included income transfer programs, housing programs, which today are also in the name of women, aiming for women's empowerment and female leadership. And some programs promoting LGBT rights. Here in our pyramid, we try to illustrate just a bit of how our organized society works today. So at the base of the pyramid of the third sector, we have associations, foundations, social movements, and organized civil society. In the middle, the first sector, which would be the state. And at the top, the second sector, which is the business sector. So why is the second sector on top? The economic power of the second sector ends up being greater than that of the state itself. So the affirmative issue is about trying to flip the pyramid a bit so that the third sector is as important as the first one. Not in the economic aspect, but in the aspect of development. We shouldn't have to fight so much to develop a society. So if we place the third sector and the first one a bit before the second, we can ensure this social development. So affirmative actions aim for human development. That's basically it. It aims to break down some barriers, to break some things that are set for us, so that we can have the same access as other people who aren't part of these groups. Because we think we have minority groups, we have oppressed groups, and who isn't in that group? Is he the oppressor, or is he a person who had more opportunities than others? So that's where we see realization of inequalities. Because when you have people who are equal, but they can't have the same opportunities, that's where inequality sets in. So that's basically what affirmative action means. The recognition, the empowerment of rights, the empowerment and access to all opportunities in an equal way.
We'll wrap up this lesson here. And the topic of the next lesson is about communication tools with the population. Applied technology, huh, folks? Don't forget to watch.